What happened to George Floyd was an absolute tragedy. The actions of those 4 policemen was disgusting, and I think 99.9% of the world is in agreement that they should be convicted of murder. Black lives do matter, just like every other life on this globe Earth. Institutionalised racism is a big problem in the Western world, especially over in the United States of extremes. But what if I told you it's not because there's lots of racists, it's the design of the system and how it's maintained. We live in a top-down, pyramidical society controlled by ruling bloodline families spanning back an unknown amount of time, most likely all the way back to the days of Babylon and possibly longer. Think about what makes the royal families royal. Throughout this time, they have created a web of control which has infiltrated all major institutions, from banking to education to media to history to science to the medical establishment and even NGOs. But I'll get back to that. They do this through various secret societies like the infamous Freemasons, which keeps its members in line through blackmail, blood oaths, death threats, and even murders, which are easily covered up. Within the Freemasons is a sect called the Boulé, consisting of 9 black bloodline families. They are there to protect the other bloodline families and control how many black people rise to positions of power and influence. Please visit Bishop Larry Gator's extensive work into the Boulé, linked in the description below. Now back to George Floyd. Who was he? Floyd is confirmed to have worked in the adult entertainment industry, which in itself has links to worldwide human trafficking rings, and he's confirmed to have worked with his killer, Derek Chauvin, previously for over a decade, as they were both nightclub bouncers together. Floyd is also confirmed to be friends with his self-proclaimed twin, ex-NBA star Stephen Jackson. Jackson, a multimillionaire, is a confirmed Boulé Freemason and was accused recently by ex-NFL player Larry Johnson of using Floyd as a sacrifice. The coroner, hired by George Floyd's family after his death, was Dr. Michael Baden, the same coroner who performed the autopsy of infamous child trafficker and elite billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. The lawyer hired by the Floyd family to represent them is Benjamin Crump, another confirmed Boulé Freemason. George Floyd's son is named Quincy Mason Floyd. Coincidence? Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, has a long history of Freemasonry, and Floyd's killing occurred half a mile from one of the Boulé's grand lodges, the Prince Hall. The site is also directly in between Calvary Lutheran Church, there's links between Lutheranism and Freemasonry, and the Baha'i Center of Minneapolis, which is some very strikingly Masonic architecture to it. At this point, I'd like to state that I'm not accusing anyone at these places of worship of wrongdoing. I'm simply making the point that this specific site was chosen for ritualistic reasons. And to top off this point, the bin next to where George Floyd was murdered had a 666 spray painted onto the sides of it. Kneeling has also been used in Masonic rituals throughout history, and raising fists. I find it interesting how taking the knee has trended after this, seeing as this is how he was killed. Now, getting back to the NGOs, I have to talk about this little gremlin. George Soros has totaled over $33 million in donations to Black Lives Matter, which is enough to easily turn a local protest into a national flashpoint, which is exactly what happened in Ferguson in 2014. Think of what that money could have done to help the black communities. He's also helped fund the Muslim migration invasion of Europe, the Occupy movement, and the race riots in Baltimore in 2015. In short, Soros helps generate violent civil unrest, resulting in further lives lost, further injuries to people, massive property damage, and usually a big monetary gain for him. Oh, and also he funds freshly labelled terrorist organisation Antifa. Now let's look at events leading up to George Floyd's death. Of course, the COVID-19 fear wave was upon us. The media refused to report on protests everywhere, complete media blackout, people's streams were being pulled and deleted from YouTube, Facebook was censoring, Twitter was censoring, and any protests that were reported on, people were wrongly labelled as right-wing, gunslinging, Confederate flag-waving stereotypes and putting everybody's lives at risk. When in actuality, it was people from all sides of the political spectrum who correctly saw, through researching and listening to the highly qualified experts being censored at the time, that it was a huge power grab for the super rich, a wiping out of the middle class, and that the new normal held no scientific or medical basis. Then suddenly George Floyd's murder happens, and social distancing goes out the window as people hit the streets in protest. The media paints the protesters as heroic and justifies violence and property damage and mass looting as the police stand back and watch. Some media outlets even stated that the peaceful anti-lockdown protesters, quote, got the red carpet compared to the largely violent riots after Floyd's death who got the tear gas. I'm not denouncing the peaceful protesters showing support for Floyd and black lives everywhere. I'm with you. My point is that this classic divide and rule tactics being used against us. It's alright for one protest, but it's not alright for the other one. This isn't just a race issue or a policing issue. It's largely a mainstream media issue, but it is unequivocally a ruling class issue. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Cheers!